2, 1. It's good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks
for having me on.
Dude, thank you for coming through. Like I was telling you beforehand, I've listened to the singles you've got out on Spotify.
Sweet.
And I'm not a country guy. Like I'll be upfront and honest. I'm not a huge country guy. And I'm like, over the last year or so, I've been kind of like dabbling and finding like small artists, not small artists, but like artists here and there that I enjoy. And your shit's good, dude.
Well, thank you.
Your shit is good. Like, yeah, real good.
I like grew up listening to country like through my grandparents and my mom, and it'd be like old timey country and like Merle Haggard and Johnny Cash and all the legends. And I kind of got away from country because I didn't like Nashville country, and I didn't know there was like anything other than that.
So
and
define Nashville country.
like that real like twangy, like beer drinking, talking about your truck and tractors, that type of country.
The more like mainstream.
Yeah, the Luke Bryans, and I can't listen to them. And the guy that kind of brought me back into it is Ryan Bingham. My uncle showed me him, and he's from New Mexico. He's from Hobbs, and he plays Walker in Yellowstone. So most people know him as that.
Oh, interesting.
But
everyone has been like bullying me to watch Yellowstone.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. We got bullied into watching it too. I couldn't finish it because it like it was kind of soap opera-y. I was like, how much people can they kill? Like, you know, and like how much bad crap can happen on this one ranch. So I got to be too much, but I always support him. He's kind of like I think he's a good guy, but he kind of battles with like the other main good guy.
Yeah.
And so he's
Wait,
kind
you
of
said he was from Hobbs?
Yeah.
Have you been down to Hobbs?
I have.
Shitty little town.
You can hear it in his music. He talks about it.
Dude, it was really like, because I had like high school girlfriends here and there, because I went to school down in Roswell for high school and college, and my first like real like major relationship was with a girl that lived in Hobbs.
Okay.
And so I spent a lot of time down there for about 2 years of my life, and that is a shitty little place. Oh my God.
It was. The last time I was down there was I bought my wife. This is a horrible story, but we had just gotten married, and I was like, I want to buy a really good Christmas present, and she always wanted one of those cream golden retrievers.
Okay.
And we didn't have a lot of money, so maybe that was part of the problem. But I found a breeder in my price range, and we went and I drove down New Year's Day. It was like a avalanche on the way out. It was a horrible trip. Then I get down there and get the pup, and he was like perfect at first. And I look back and I'm like, freaking Hobbs. But because we had him for a couple months, and like probably about as early as like 2 months, he started showing like aggression. Oh, and shit. I was like, holy crap. And I was like, we need to jump on this. Like, we can't let this dog get any bigger, and then he's aggressive. And so we went through like months and months of like training and finding people and like blowing through money, trying to get all these world-renowned trainers. And there was a span where it started out with territorial stuff like food or toys and all of that, and then it became random. And there's 2 days in a row where my wife called me and was like, Arlo has me pinned in the bathroom, and like he's like trying to attack me. And so I was like, holy shit. Jesus. And I like ran home from work. Luckily I live like 30 seconds away from my work. So I got there, and I'd like walk in and I'd be like, Arlo, no. And he'd just snap out of it and would be like completely fine. Like, hey, how are you? And so I was like, what in the world? And so we ended up finding a shelter to take him. Yeah. And they were telling us like all these things. Like, we've worked with Goldens like all over the place. Like, we know what we're doing. And I told him, I'm like, all right. I was like, don't have him around like kids or elderly people, because I'm like, he's gonna attack him. And they're like, we know what we're doing. They kept brushing me off, and I was like, please, like, do not have him around kids or elderly people. And sure enough, they took him. That night we got a phone call, and they're like, he attacked our son. And I was like, what? I was like, I just told you to have him around kids. And so then they ended up putting him down.
Jesus.
And I was like, so whenever I think of Hobbs, that's the first story that comes to mind.
You're right. That is a fucking sad-ass story.
Oh, it was horrible.
I'm proud to announce that the podcast is now officially sponsored by the fine people over at Chop Chili Company. Guys, this is some of the best chili you can get here in the state of New Mexico, and they are online as well as in stores. They can be found at Smith's, Albertsons, Sprouts, John Brooks, and Lowe's Corner Market. They have 3 amazing flavors that you see here, and they also have frozen green chili that you can get online. Go on over to the website, chopchilico.com, and get yourself some amazing chili today. Jesus Christ.
Man. Yeah.
So the breeder just wanted to get him off his hands.
Yeah, we think they were... they told us, like, it seemed like a perfect, like, family operation. Like, I walked up and their daughter's, like, holding the puppies and, like, picture perfect and everything. I'm like, oh, okay, this is perfect.
Yeah.
And they had 2 dogs. Like, they showed them to me. And they're like, we're just, like, a small family breeder. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then, but, like, 3 or 4 months after we had Arlo, they were, like, getting ready for another litter. And I'm like, whoa, that's a little too quick of a turnover. So I think they might have been overbreeding, or I don't know enough about that.
It's sketchy as shit.
Yeah, and we had a friend who got a pup from them too, and they had some issues with him as well. So I was like, ah. Oh.
And how old were you and your wife at this point?
That was like the beginning of 2022. So hold on, so like 25, 24, 25. My wife was probably like 23.
Shit.
Yeah.
So she's young, getting fucking pinned in the corner by this big ass dog. Yeah,
he bit my aunt. Like it was awful because he was the perfect dog like 90% of the time, but the other 10% he was trying to eat you. So it was like, because you could see the good dog in him, but like that 10%, it was just like, we want to have kids eventually, and you know, and so I used to have this routine where he'd flip. I would like throw my arm out and he'd like latch onto my arm. I'd grab his collar and then like we'd try and neutralize him. But he, I mean, you could tell Goldens aren't breeds made for attacking because the bites were like nothing. But I'm like, you can't tell that tell that to somebody if we take him on a walk and he attacks a kid.
Right.
You can't be like, oh, that's nothing.
God, that's terrible, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I forget. You just said his name, actor from Yellowstone.
Ryan Bingham.
So country star or country singer from Hobbs. You got introduced to his music, and then...
Yeah, my uncle had showed me to him, and I was like, this is like real country. Like, he had been in and out of rodeos, like from here across Texas, and just singing about like real stuff. And
he lives that life.
Yeah. Exactly. Like hard times, like, you know, no flashy, like lifted, like my truck's this big and I drink this much beer. It's just like stuff anybody can relate to. And so that kind of led me on a path to Tyler Childers was the main guy. I don't know have you heard of Tyler Childers?
I've heard the name.
He's if you want a good intro to country, he's a great place because he's freaking amazing. His early music is really good. His later stuff's, a lot of people are debating it, but his early stuff's really good. And that's how I learned how to play the guitar, was just watching his videos.
How old were you at that point?
I was old. When I was growing up, my mom made me like go to church and take guitar lessons in church, and I hated it, and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And we'd have a constant battle, and so I stopped playing the guitar. And right when COVID happened, you couldn't go anywhere. I was like, I'm going to start learning how to play the guitar because I love Pink Floyd. I've always loved music too much. So I was like, I'm going to start playing the guitar, and I'd watch his videos. So what was that? Like 4 years ago?
Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago. So it seems like yesterday, but dang.
So COVID happens, everything shuts down, and you have a lot of time to yourself, I would imagine.
Yeah.
What were you doing for work before COVID?
So I was working at credit union and it was called payment systems. So like we would import files from the Federal Reserve, and
sounds boring.
It was, and great people there, but the job was, I was like, oh man. But I was also going through college at the time and working full time, and I had to, pay to go to college, and kind of regret all of that. But
what were you going to school for?
I started out as like, I was like like the original plan, I think me and my mom had for me was to be a lawyer. But once I got to college, and I was like, not very good at this college stuff, so lawyers out the window. Once that 2.0 GPA came in, I'm like, ooh, I'm probably not going to be a lawyer.
That's where I was too.
Yeah. And so I moved to like business, like finance, and then took my first finance class, got like a 14 in it. So I was like, well, I'm not going to be in finance.
14.
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
Yeah. The 2 hardest classes I ever took were finance, Navajo, and astronomy. All those classes are weirdly difficult. But so then I just audibled and got like a general business degree.
Yeah.
And
So you ended up graduating.
yeah.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for my mom, I probably wouldn't have graduated. So I guess it's nice to have it in my back pocket. But
So you, so like I said, COVID happens, things shut down. You start getting really like actually getting into music and doing all that kind of stuff. Like where did you start? Because that seems like because music is such a broad thing.
yeah.
Especially like regardless if you're going into like obviously you went into country,
Yeah.
but it's such a broad genre of like. So where did you find yourself gravitating towards first? Where did you start with music?
I've always felt like I've listened to music differently. Like, I feel like there's people who are just playing what's on the radio and they're like, this new Lil Uzi Vert track's great. And I'm like, yeah, it is pretty good. But I've always like, I want to listen to it start to finish. And like, I'm a big fan of like classic rock, and cause I like full productions and like, meanings behind the music. And when I was towards the end of high school and beginning of college, I was friends with a lot of rappers. And I'm like, I'm not much of a rapper, so I'll make beats for you guys. So my intro into music was actually beat making, and I've got like thousands of beats just sitting on my laptop that have never seen the light of day.
I've never would have guessed.
No,
That's funny.
Yeah, so that was like my intro into music, and I was always like, man, if I could be a musician myself, that'd be so cool. But I'm like, I knew it wasn't going to be that avenue, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to say on a rap song that anybody would relate to.
Do you ever think about just doing music production? Like, obviously, country is where you should be, but did that ever cross your mind that, like, music production or, like, I'm not well versed in this, but, like, beat production, right?
Yeah, that was...
Studio production?
Yeah, that was, like, I had kind of gotten into it, but, like, I don't think I was cut out for like that side of music. It's so fast paced, and I feel like it's like the news cycle. It's not about like, I mean, there's great quality out there, but it's being first and being trendy, and it kind of made me uncomfortable. So once I started learning to play the guitar, I was like, my life stories could actually translate into this genre of music. And, like Coyote Creek is probably my top song, and that's just a story about a horrible camping trip where everything that could have gone wrong went wrong, but it was like the time where me and my now wife like kind of realized like, oh, I think we might like each other. So, and like I have a new song coming out it's called Pawn Shop Savant, and it's about before me and my wife were getting married. I didn't have much money. I actually had like $0 in my account and maybe like $20 left on my credit card. But I still had to play that facade of acting like, yeah, let's go out to dinner. And, like, I got you, because my parents raised me. I always pay for dinner. Yeah. And so I was driving down Manal and saw this pawn shop that said, we buy gift cards. And I was like, I've got some gift cards.
Wait, they buy gift cards?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
I was like, I didn't know these places existed, but that's perfect. And I had just had a birthday, and I went home and like scrounged together all of my gift cards. Some of them had like $4 on them. So some of them had like 100, and I just like plopped them on the counter, and they came out to like $300 some. And he's like, I'll give you $200 for it. I was like, do it. I was like, perfect. So I wrote a song about that, and I was like, I feel like this genre is just free. Like you can, there is the side of, cowboys, out in their hard times, but there's also the side like Appalachian or like, just kind of like just struggling through life side of it that I think like really related to me.
It's a very blue collar genre.
Yeah.
In my opinion, at its best,
yeah.
It's a blue collar genre. Like, 'cause I agree. Like, when I got introduced to country a very, very long time ago, it was like the Toby Keith and the Luke Bryan and stuff like that. And no like shade towards people who enjoy that type of music or to those guys, because they are making more money than I think I will ever see in one place in my life. But yeah, I don't know. It's just never something I gravitated towards, just because I was never a country type of guy. I was raised same thing. I was raised on classic rock, heavy metal, that type of shit. if you can't tell. And that's just always what I gravitated towards. And then as I grew up, and like I had friends that, you know, were super into country, but like never really wasn't my thing. Never really found myself attracted to Buckle Bunnies. So it just never, you know what I mean? You're never going to catch me down at fucking Dirty Bourbon.
No,
it's just not my thing. But I did have an inkling towards like, well, mainly Johnny Cash.
Okay.
That was a lot of the country that if I were to listen to it, that's what I was really into.
Yeah.
But now I find myself listening to a bit of like what's his fucking name? Colter Wall.
Oh, Colter Wall is the best.
That dude he sounds like, I heard about him first through Joe Rogan because he brought him up on an episode.
Yeah.
And he's the dude's like 20 something, but he sounds like an 80-year-old like grizzled alcoholic that smokes every day. I'm like, what? That makes no sense. But I listened to his shit and I was like, oh my.
Yeah.
What the fuck is that?
Amazing storytelling.
But the reason I bring all of that up is that side of country is more of what I'm attracted to.
Yeah.
It's because it's a lot more, it's real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Heck yeah. I could give you like a starter pack of like people to listen to if you like Colter Wall, because you listen to him and you're like, damn, I didn't know like country singers were singing about this stuff. And like Colter Wall is insane because I think he works down on a ranch now. Mm-hmm. Like he struck it big and was like, you know what, I need to get even tougher, and went down to work on a ranch in Texas. I'm like,
well, I think that's a perfect example of somebody who knew what they loved but didn't have the money to do it.
Yeah.
So exactly. He was like, I got super famous.
Yeah.
And I'm balling out of control.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do what I love.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fucking work on a big badass ranch.
Yeah. That FU money.
Yeah, exactly. Got that fuck you money. Yeah. Exactly. So when did you start writing your music? What was like the first single or the first couple of tracks you were working on?
The very first song I wrote was Willie and Merle, and I released that on Spotify. And I don't love that it's on Spotify because it's such low quality, but it's the best I could do at the time. Yeah. And that was in 2019. I mean, I'd written before that, but it was like, I hate saying this because it sounds terrible, but I would like write like poetry and stuff like that, but in like deep dark closet.
Songs are poetry.
Yeah.
You know, I first figured that out with any kind of band. I found out with Guns N' Roses with their song Patience.
Okay.
I was like, fuck this shit. I was young. I was like 7, maybe 8, and I had gotten the silver greatest hits album of Guns N' Roses. And I was listening, and I would skip through that track. Like, I want the heavy, like Welcome to the Jungle type shit.
Yeah.
But I listened to Patience for the first time. I was like, damn. Yeah. I was like too young to comprehend it. But I was like, this sounds really sad. I remember, and that's back when CDs had quality, and they had like the booklets and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, I read the lyrics. I was like, I don't understand half of this, but this is sad.
Yeah. They give you like artwork too. You're like, man, this is a deal. Yeah.
But anyway, so you put out your first couple of songs. Because I've found on your Instagram do you record all your shit at home?
I do.
That's awesome. You couldn't tell.
Really?
It sounds
thank you.
It sounds pretty fucking good, dude.
I'm like, I've got like, I don't know the acronyms, the ADHD, whatever people want to label it. But once I get hooked on something, I go all in. And it's just that once I started recording again, I didn't have a lot of money. You know, I went and bought a microphone, and everything's been a learning curve because I didn't know anything about it. So I like bought a microphone, went home, like I'm ready to record. And I go to YouTube and they're like, well, you need like an interface. I'm like, what the hell is an interface? And so I went and bought an interface, and I get back, it doesn't plug into my laptop. So I've got to go buy a converter. And I'm like, holy shit, like what's all of this stuff that I need? Yeah. And so you get to the recording part and you record it. I'm like, this sounds like shit. Like what? Well, how do they do this? And then they're like, well, now you got to EQ it, and now you got to mix and master it. So it's a horrible battle. That's the side of music that I don't love. If I ever come to some money, I'm gonna ship that off to somebody and have them do that, because then you go into a room and you're like, well, you got to soundproof the room and you got to do sound treatment if you want it to sound good. Because, you know, I'm at a point now where like the songs that I'm about to release, I think are probably the highest quality songs that I've made so far. And so I want them to be good. Yeah. I want them to be really good. And that is tough on a budget. And so I got a little bit better of a microphone. I have done trial and error in different places, but weirdly the best place to record is in my truck. And I probably look like a psychopath because I'll be like carrying out my recording equipment to my truck at like midnight. I'm like, if my neighbors are watching me, they're probably gonna call the cops or.
Well, I was gonna say that kind of makes sense because you just set everything up in the cab?
In the back seat.
Oh, in the back seat.
Yeah, I roll the seats up and then I pop one side of the back seat seats up, put my microphone right there. I got my laptop on the center console, and I just enough room for me and my guitar, and I go for it.
Dude, that's honestly kind of genius because when you think about it, whether your seats are made of leather or like pleather or like the cloth, whatever your seats are made out of, that helps dampen sound.
Yeah.
And then same thing with the top of the truck. And then the only real thing you have to worry about maybe is the glass.
Yeah.
But you can put a shirt or you can put a blanket on the glass.
Roll a window up in the
exactly.
in the windows.
Yeah, you just put a blanket there. Now you have a soundproofed. That's actually kind of genius.
Yeah, people probably think I'm the Unabomber, but I'm really just recording. I'm just recording my next album, so please don't call the cops.
So it's funny. Well, actually, before I say this, seeing you throw us in has made me think about Copenhagen. So I'm gonna be right back. I've got my can on the other side of the cloth, so I'm just gonna grab that. They put out. I want to say that I left it at my office because to a couple people's dismay, I chew at work, but I truly couldn't fucking care less.
Yeah.
They make I guess they put it out like every 5 years because there's a Copenhagen called Copenhagen Dark.
Okay.
And the tobacco is aged for 5 years.
Okay.
In whiskey barrels.
Ooh.
And it's like fine cut.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So it's not as like fine grained as like snuff or anything like that. Because that's just have you? I'm assuming you've chewed snuff.
I did it once, and I was not a fan of the after.
It's like you're throwing fucking sanity.
Yeah.
But it's
the
not
whole night. I was like, what the hell is this?
It's not as fine grained as that.
Okay.
But it is on the finer side. Like it's more than this.
Okay.
And then it tastes. It's like it's not like you can taste the fucking whiskey, but it's like a different type of.
It makes you think that it's got whiskey.
I don't know. It just tastes really fucking good. Anyway,
that's my very first jobs was my family had a tobacco business, and it was started out with my grandpa.
Are they still in business or
no? They went under. Yeah. Sorry to hear that. Oh, it's all right. It's a tough business for a small company to get started in because it's like anything else you'd imagine. I think it's RJ Reynolds has a major stronghold on all tobacco products.
I know, so I haven't looked a ton into it, but I know that there is such a thing as like big tobacco.
Yeah.
And where it basically, just like any other industry, it all funnels up.
Yeah.
Like whether you're smoking Marlboros, smoking Camels, you're chewing Copenhagen, Skull, whatever it is, it all funnels up to like 2 to 3 companies that pretty much run everything.
Yeah.
So who's the guy you're talking about?
RJ Reynolds, probably, that's the company name. They've been around forever. They were like the company in that one movie, the Thank You for Smoking or Thank You.
Oh, yeah. With the motherfucker that played Two-Face. Aaron Eckhart.
Eckhart?
Yeah. I haven't seen that movie in fucking forever.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But they're that company, and it's like they got, they would kind of dictate the market, and they, one of the things is they would, like taxes are crazy on tobacco. That's why reservation tobacco is cheaper. And that's kind of what my family would stick to is I'd be out on reservations all day selling cigarettes. And and I wrote a song about it, and my mom wasn't too happy because she was like, "You make it sound too harsh." And I was like, "It's kind of a tough job." But like my very first job was rolling cigarettes out in Moriarty. I would wake up at like my mom's gonna hate that I'm saying this, but I would wake up
hilarious.
Early in the morning and get a ride from this dude named Hazael, and he would take me out to Moriarty. I'd roll cigarettes for 12 hours a day.
Beautiful.
And then I get my first paycheck, and I'm like, you didn't even pay me minimum wage, Mom. And she's like, well, I provide health insurance, so I don't have to pay you full minimum wage. And she told me, she's like, you want a different job? You need to go get one. And I was like, all right. And that was her way of motivating me.
That's a tough lady.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very lucky to have the mom and dad that I do.
Good job in the backtracking.
Yeah.
You are meant to be singing country music, dude. What the fuck? But anyway, what I was going to say is, I mentioned it a couple times on the pod before, but there's a little questionnaire that I send out. And one of the things you said on yours is the conspiracy theories bit of it.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know the backstory of the fucking Unabomber?
Oh, yeah.
Because not a lot of people know that. They just think he's some fucking crazy guy. And granted, should he have tried to blow up post offices and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Probably not. That's a bad way to send. That's a bad way to send a message.
Yeah.
To convert people to your way of thinking. That's not the most pleasant way to go about things. But the fact that dude was in the same program in Harvard as
Manson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy shit. Yeah. Like for people, if you want to explain for people who don't know,
I might butcher it, but they were. Is it MK Ultra? Is that the program that was under it?
It spanned for like 25, 30 years.
Yeah, and it stretched down into New Mexico too, because we were one of the main drug tests. The university would test psychoactive drugs.
So you're kind of right about that. So we weren't a part of MK Ultra, but because of how do I put this? It's like because of what the CIA was doing with MK Ultra, people at UNM in the 90s were like, okay, that's fucked up, but they had the right idea, so we're gonna do tests here with DMT.
Oh, okay.
And there's a book, I keep meaning to fucking buy it because they always have it in stock at Barnes & Noble. But, I'm a dork that still goes to Barnes & Noble.
Yeah, I respect it.
There's a book, it's called DMT, like the spirit molecule or like the God particle or something like that. And basically what they did is in this experiment in like 91, 92, around there, they took like 40-something people, split them up. And they all dosed him with the same amount of DMT, kept them completely separate, did not let them talk before or afterwards. No one can conspire and all that kind of stuff, right? Kept everything anonymous so that even if they try to talk to one another, they wouldn't know who they were. And they all came back with like 80% the same story.
Yeah.
The same experience,
insane.
How they and the only the only differentiating variables were I went and spoke to elves.
It's always elves.
Yeah. Like elves. I talked to reptiles. They all talked about, so for the people in the group that managed to break through, they all talked about how before they actually broke through and experienced all the geometrical shit, and before they went and spoke to beings, whatever these extra dimensional beings were, they all were in this they all experienced this white waiting room. Whoa. Where they spoke to I think they just they
purgatory.
And they all described this aura, this being, this shapeless, formless thing, but it had a feminine personality to it.
Whoa. So
they all spoke to this woman that helped prepare them to get basically shot through the cosmos.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That was before the big one that everybody talks about. Before you feel like you get blasted off and they go into this white room.
Yeah.
And all of them said that?
Yeah. They all talked about all the ones that, because not all of them managed to break through, but of the ones that did, they all talked about meeting this lady.
Jeez.
Or this feminine aura. Yeah. It's motherly type thing.
Yeah.
And they all, the ones that did break through, they all talked to I was saying, the elves or reptiles. Some people saw clowns. Some people talked to what they thought was God. Again, just this shapeless, formless thing that was an overpowering, higher creator type thing.
Yeah.
So that's what happened here in New Mexico.
Dang. You need to listen to a song called Turtles All the Way Down. Have you heard? It's by Sturgill Simpson. He's been on Joe Rogan's podcast, and I won't ruin anything about it, but listen to that song.
I'm gonna forget
Yeah.
what you just told me, so I'm going to save that really quick.
Save that, and it's exactly what we just been talking about, and it's a lot different than any country song.
Okay.
You probably heard.
Well, I mean, the fucking cover art is
perfect, huh?
Yeah. What the fuck? That's hilarious. But anyway, so then you're kind of on the same track with MK Ultra, where they're just dosing these guys with LSD during the 60s, like the late 50s into like the 80s and shit like that. But yeah, Unabomber.
They would take like misfits in, right? Like Marilyn Manson had been like, his parents had left him, and he had gotten into trouble like early on in his life.
Manson.
Or did I say Marilyn?
Yeah,
Oops,
Charles
sorry,
Manson.
Man. Yeah, Charles, and would kind of like take these groups of like messed up kids, and then or just like anybody who they could get their hands on and give them LSD and see what would happen.
Yeah, and by the time they got around to doing it to Kaczynski, they wanted to take hyper intelligent people from Harvard.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, and then there's a guy, I've only read part of his book because I have
dangerous.
Yeah. Well, because I had a free trial for like it wasn't Audible, but it was some book reading app, and I read the first few chapters of I think it's called Chaos, the book about Marilyn or about Charles Manson and MK Ultra and all that shit. And the guy that wrote the book, he spent like 20 years researching it.
Whoa.
And there's some nefarious shit about like the CIA. The reason they took Charles Manson was to basically like breed him into a homegrown terrorist so that he could go out and influence people. Like they taught him how to psyop people. And that's why he had like the whole Manson family shit. And then until things got really egregious and the killings got way too much notoriety, like these kids were out like committing like larceny and they were murdering people. And whenever whenever Charles Manson would get associated with it and arrested, like so you have this like local PD.
Yeah.
They'd nap his ass up, and then the CIA would come down and be like, nah, he's ours, let him go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the amount of times he got bailed out was insane.
And that happened for like 8 years, I think.
Jeez.
He just got these continuous get out of jail free cards.
It's part of me like wonders, like, is that like, what's the deeper thought? Like, is it just a social experiment, or is that good for fear mongering? Like, are you trying to, defame drugs? Like, this is what could happen, or,
I think it's all the above. I think it's because a lot of people try to say like it's only one reason or it's like a one agenda. It's like, yeah, like it's one overarching and it's power, right? It's power and control. But because it's so stupid. In the 90s, it was either the Army or the Air Force. They tried to create and I'm not making this up, they tried to create the gay drug. You hear about that?
Yeah. I don't.
Yeah. So
is that the one with the frogs? Is that the same thing?
No.
Okay, never mind. I'm thinking Alex Jones here.
Yeah. So that one's real quick and simple. Basically, what was happening is he did some research where he found out about some chemicals that were like these pesticides that were getting used in crops, but it was getting used so much that it seeped into local water supplies and like streams and rivers and shit. This was like back east somewhere. But what ended up happening was these chemicals got into the waters and they literally changed the chromosomes and mutated sex organs of these frogs and would like turn male frogs to female frogs. And they just start interbreeding with the wrong gender. And so it's like, yeah, turning the frogs gay. Yeah.
And so the military was wanting to do the same thing.
Yeah, so I guess what the military was doing is they were trying to create this gas where you would gas, because this was during like the Gulf War. So you would gas your enemy and turn them gay.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What's the benefit of that?
I have no idea. But I don't know how much stand-up comedy you watch. But do you know who Shane Gillis is?
Oh, I love Shane Gillis.
Have you seen his bit about what if the different militaries in history were gay?
No,
and he has his bit about the gay Nazis.
No.
He goes, any military. Now, if they were gay, the Nazis, as if they couldn't get any sharper.
Oh my God.
But anyway, so I think it's all about power and control. And then like you hear about something along the same lines of MK Ultra. You have Operation Midnight Climax. Have you heard about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The prostitutes. Yeah. I was telling my wife about that the other day, and I think at this point she's like, "You're making this stuff up." I'm like, "It's true. It was documented."
You look all of it up, and it's real.
Yeah.
And I think it's a multi-pronged approach where it's like, yeah, this is what happens when you take LSD. This is what happens when you do drugs. This is what happens, or like, and it's like now we can see the effects up close. And for a government, so I was like, okay, how do we control the populace better? Can we get this under the water supply? Can we do this? Can we do that? And then this is kind of more of a hokey theory, but I kind of buy into it a little bit, where it's, if you're a government that wants to control its people as much as possible, right? Because like the American government, you know, for all its benefits, its flaws are so glaring and so impossibly negative.
Yeah.
But because of what this country was founded on, because we have a constitution that works for the most part, our government can't get tyrannical.
Yeah.
Right? This is not the country where things can get truly tyrannical to like a Chinese or a North Korean level of tyranny, right? So we have like a soft tyranny. It's a soft control. It's insanely high taxes. It's gun control. It's changing the narrative in the media. Who are we supposed to support? Who are we supposed to believe in? The schools. Exactly. So if you're a government that's not going to physically oppress people, right? And obviously there's an argument to be made about like police forces and shit like that. But like, if you're not sending out your military to go effectively like keep people in their homes, or like imprison people for no reason, shit like that, right? Like outright, like these other countries do, and you're doing it more of a soft way, okay, you don't want, if you're trying to psyop your country, you don't want them on psychedelics.
Yeah.
You don't want them free thinking.
Yeah.
In the future, I can delve into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But from my friends that have taken them, it's the number one common denominator. Whether it's a good trip, a bad trip, it's always, I become more of a free thinker afterwards.
Yeah.
And I become less concerned with day-to-day issues.
And I think that's like I think that's the loop, or the big gap that everybody's having a tough time understanding. Like, why would you need to control that? You know, as far as like the DMT or whatever anybody wants to do. As far as the government, I always say like the way that I'm going to raise my household's a lot different than the way I expect the government to be ran. I've got certain personal views, but I don't think everybody should have those personal views, because everybody's going to be like me and I'm an idiot at the end of the day. Like, that'd be horrible. So like, I'm not like, I don't really care what you do, but you know, one of the most violent drugs there is as far as crime rates is alcohol. And yeah, like like marijuana is legal in New Mexico now. People don't smoke weed and then go and drive and kill a family of 4. Like, I'm sure somebody can find a case where that has happened, but like, as like historically, that's not the case.
Yeah. And if you smoke too much weed, the biggest victims can be your fridge.
Yeah. There's like, there's a joke that, a drunk driver runs a stop sign, but a pothead waits for it to turn green. And so like, so like that's the gap everybody's seeing. Like, if alcohol's legal and some of the foods that we are eating are legal, like, how do you put a stronghold on these ones just because they're making you think differently?
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And I think the best way I heard it put was by this guy named Graham Hancock. Really smart fucking guy. He's mainly a historian. And the way he put it, this is at an old Rogan episode. Like, I think it's like episode 10 or 11 or some shit. And he's talking about the legalization of marijuana, psychedelics. And he goes, well, it doesn't make any sense, because the argument is that you're going to get too high and damage yourself, and you're going to get too high and damage other people. Okay. Well, the government shouldn't have any say in what you do to yourself. If you do something and you end up harming yourself, that's on you. Like, that is your fault.
Yeah.
Right? A. And B, we already have we already have laws against murder, rape, arson, theft, like jacking somebody's car.
Yeah.
Shit like that. We have laws against that. And then we have like subsections of that if you were drunk, if you're whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So legalizing these like the government should not. He goes, the government should not have jurisdiction over your mental state. If you're a grown adult and you're making decisions, like just like with marijuana, you have to be 21. You have to be 21 to go to a dispensary and get a joint, right? Get a gram, whatever you want to get an edible. You have to be 21. So no one's advocating for kids to go out and fucking be able to buy these things legally. But for a grown adult, the government should not have a say in what you do and altering your mental state.
Yeah. If you're, you're working, like by the time I was 21, I had my own, I was paying rent, paying taxes, all of the liberties to be an adult. But then it's like, then you realize like, oh, I don't have a lot. Like you start to pick up on these things, like the inconsistencies, like, oh, I can go and buy enough alcohol to literally kill me tonight, but there's certain things that are off limits. Yeah. And like it's like a failure to think deeply, because the food that you put in your body is going to change how you think. Like if you want to label a drug as something that alters your state of mind, if you go out and eat crappy food for 2 months straight, you're going to become probably depressed, and you're going to have less energy. You're going to have a bleak outlook on life. And, so it's like, why is that mental change any different than this substance? And like coffee is one of the biggest ones too. Yeah. Coffee is a psychoactive drug. Like
the caffeine.
The caffeine, and it completely alters your state of mind, and it's highly, highly addictive.
Yeah, I'm trying to go. This is my second day without an energy drink in years. I think, like honestly, in
getting headaches.
Like, no, I was sluggish as shit because I could be a lot better about my sleep, but I'm just so busy throughout the week, throughout the day, with the exception of like an off Saturday or like usually Sundays are my slower days, but even then I have work to do and shit to do. Yeah. So usually like a Sunday night, I'll get 7 hours of sleep, but typically I get 5 to 6 because I'm just so busy doing all these different things. And so I've been real reliant on caffeine to like just keep me going. But then this past weekend I was like, fuck man, like, so be better on my wallet, A. Yeah. But B, like I got to the point where I was like, well, I don't want to get myself into a situation where I'm starting to have health issues because of all these chemicals and just the amount of caffeine I'm putting in my body. So I need to go cold turkey. I know I can. I just need to do it. Yeah. And yesterday, I remember getting through my day, and about around like 4 or 5, I was like, man, I'm just as tired now as I would be anyway. So what does that say about my caffeine tolerance? Yeah. A, I'm just basically drinking a really fast soda. Yeah. Like, you know? Yeah. So I was like, okay, I need to put these away. Like eat, and I would justify it to myself, like, oh, well, it's the sugar-free monsters. Like, well, yes, but no. Like,
and they taste so good too. That's a bad thing.
Yes, exactly. So I've been putting that away. Today's day 2, and I feel it for sure. Like right now, like I feel like at 40%.
Has it changed your sleep at all?
Yeah. I've slept like shit the last 2. I'm pretty good about going to sleep and staying asleep for the most part. But yeah, the last 2 nights I've just been like, what the fuck? I can't stay asleep. Yeah. It fucking sucks. But I know it's for the better. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's just crazy.
I'm the same way. I can't sleep at all. I've never been able to sleep even as a kid. I'm the type of person that I go and make sure the doors are locked like 6 times. And if I hear anything, I go and check it because I'm like, somebody's in the house.
I'm sure your wife loves that.
Oh, yeah. There was a night the other night where I don't know what happened, but I had heard something downstairs.
Keep going. I'm just going to check the cameras and shit.
Okay. I heard something downstairs, and in my head, I'm like, somebody's in here. And so I went and checked it. And I got back to bed, and she was like, what were you doing? And I didn't want to freak her out. So I was like, oh, I just went to the bathroom. She was like, you were gone a really long time. I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. And so then I lay in bed. I woke her up. And then maybe 3 minutes later, we heard this loud thud. So I roll out of bed, I have my gun in hand, and I'm ready to, I was 100%, I guess 99% sure that somebody was in our house. And I was like, holy crap, am I really going to have to do this? And I scanned the whole house, and I was like out. I get back to bed and she's like, you should probably check outside too. So she's just as crazy as I am, which is a good thing. But I mean, living in Albuquerque too, it's like I've had my car stolen.
I'm sure.
My truck. I have this fun little routine that I have to do where I leave my window down because the door handle doesn't work. Because we were living in apartments at the time, and we like came out in the morning and there's this dude like freaking out, and we're like, what happened? He's like, somebody stole my car. And I was like, where were you parked? And he was parked like right next to me. And like kind of selfishly, I was like, thank God it wasn't my car.
Yeah, well.
And so we were like out, and then I couldn't open my door handle. So I was like, what in the world? And when we were out, I noticed that the foam padding, somebody had probably tried to get in to pick the lock. And they'd also driven a screwdriver into the door handle to try and get into my truck. Luckily, I think they just broke the thing so the door wouldn't open. So now I leave my window down. I've got to reach in to open it up, or I've got to go in through the back seat, and I just leave all the doors unlocked and don't keep anything valuable in it.
Jesus,
I have like one of those steering wheel locks because I'm like, well, and I have constantly since the doors are unlocked, people will go in and like rummage through my stuff. So my truck's basically a community truck that anybody can go. I'm like, there's nothing
scary,
there.
Dude.
It's nothing of use in there. But so it's just, I think living in Albuquerque, you have this extra level of, like there's, you're on high alert.
Yeah.
I realized that when I went out to my first year of college, I went out to a college called Radford. It's like right next to Virginia Tech. I don't know if you're a sports fan, but
very casually consume
I'm a huge Virginia Tech fan. That's where my dad's family's from. So I went out there, and like they would make fun of like, one words I'd say, like they'd always make fun of the way I said eggs. And they're like, it's eggs. And I'm like, no, it's eggs. And they would always be like, I would like be scoping people down. They're like, why are you looking at him like that? And I'm like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I got to scan him to make sure he's not going to do anything weird when we get up. And they're like, what's wrong with you? So I seem like a huge freak out there. But just living out here, you got to kind of have that level of awareness.
And it's only getting worse.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, it's only getting worse. And like, it's not funny, but like, because my goal right now is about a little over a year, I'll move to Austin. Okay. And I got some friends out there, and I talk to them a lot, and I feel like every like couple months I have another friend or a couple friends that move out to Austin. I'm like, fuck, I will be there soon. I cannot wait. And they'll like send me pictures like the comedy mothership and shit. Yeah. And I'm like, I need to fucking move. But anyway, so I'll like look into like the local news of Austin, see what's going on, shit like that. And like, just like 6 months ago, they're having some dude, I think they finally caught him, or the guy, like, it's died down in the news. I mean, either he got away or they finally caught him. There was some dude just stabbing guys on 6th Street and hiding or dumping the bodies in the river.
Killing them?
Yeah, killing them.
What in the
Because
world?
they just kept finding bodies of men like our age, between the ages of like, I think 24 and 31.
Yeah.
Just dead in the river. And I was like, fuck, man. Like, I'm moving away from Albuquerque to get away from the psychos.
Yeah.
I can deal with liberals and blue hairs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's fine. I just don't want to get my shit stolen or killed.
And again, why you have to have that level, because every person I see, and I was teaching my wife like the different head nods. I'm like, guys have like a secret language. Like, I was like, if I meet a gentleman that's older than me, that I'm gonna give him respect. So like, you'll see me like do a head down nod, and that's like a like paying him respect. Yeah. I was like, the other one is the head up nod, which I was like, can go either way. If we're close friends, if I know you and I give like the head up, like, oh, how are you? But if I don't know you and somebody goes like that, where I'm like, okay, I'm like, get in the truck, like
fuck,
something's
really?
going down. And I was like, and she's like, you overthink this stuff. I'm like,
no, that's real.
I'm like, it's just part of our DNA.
Yeah.
And I feel like Albuquerque used to be a place where you could kind of like stay out of the bad areas. Like you knew where not to go. But now it's like everywhere. Like me and my wife bought a house in what we thought was like a good area. And then like right after we bought it, like somebody got shot like a street down, and we're like, holy crap. And it's unpredictable. I don't know what the answer would be. It's just, I don't know. I think it's just a tough place.
Well, I think it's a nationwide issue. And I think a big part of it is the lack, because there's statistics that show that because a lot of the crimes that are getting committed, unfortunately, are by young people, right? Specifically young men. And so there are statistics that show the more, like, for lack of a better term, after school programs, like things for people to do you have in a city, the less crime you have. And it starts with young kids, literally in elementary school, middle school, and high school, right? So the more community centers you have, the more after school sports that get funded, right? The more community-based things you have in a city. Because if you just give kids free time, they're going to do stupid shit. If you give humans free time, they're going to do stupid shit either to themselves or to others, right?
Especially guys.
Yeah, we're going to do stupid shit. And obviously, like, the hyper side of one side of the spectrum is extreme laziness, and they just get off work and they only just play video games or watch movies, and they just sleep and eat shitty food and whatever it is. That's like the slobby side of it. And then the other side of the spectrum is the extreme violence, right? So they're going to, especially if they're in the wrong part of town, especially if they're young and they're impressionable, and obviously we have divorce rates skyrocketing, right? A lot of a lot of households are raised by single parents, specifically single moms. Moms working 2 or 3 jobs and have enough time to watch the kids after school or stuff like that. So the kids they don't have a strong male role model, and so who are the leaders in their community? Who are the people with with status and with money and women and access to things in life that they think are cool? Right. And then so they get indoctrinated into that shit, and then, because of just the way gangs work, they treat them like a family, right? They'll obviously, it's a very violent lifestyle, but we'll take care of you. Yeah, come on.
Dude, somebody to depend on for once.
Exactly. And that's just how you have this cycle of insanity and violence that perpetuates in the city. And I think that's one aspect of it. Another one is just desperation. I mean, COVID just accelerated anything bad in a city, regardless of where you're at. COVID accelerated it. A lot of people in their homes. The trust for the government's at an all-time low. And then, if you live in a special state like New Mexico with Grisham, say what you want about that woman. I know people that support her up and down. I know people that hate her guts. It is crazy to me that even, like, I had extremely left-leaning friends that are like anti-gun and they want more gun laws and all that stuff. Even they were telling me, like, that recent thing she tried to do, where it was like you can't conceal carry, and you can't, because, like, I think open carrying is silly anyway. Like, do it if you want to, fine, but I don't necessarily think that makes any environment better. I think, and like, open carrying is just fucking silly. But the fact that she tried to implement a law or a ban or a policy, whatever you want to call it, where it was for the next 30 days you cannot carry.
And everybody was like, well, it's only 30 days. And I was like, well, I think we need to be careful because we've heard 2 weeks before. And we saw what happened to that. That was a long 2 weeks. So.
Exactly. And what made me happy about the response to that, though, is you had a very small amount of people that had that mindset. For the most part, again, even the lefties were like, you want to disarm law-abiding citizens in one of the most violent, like, violent states, but also one of the most violent cities in the country. Are you sure? And then you saw, like, all the public statements from, like, the heads of the state police, Bernalillo County Sheriff, even APD. They're like, we're not touching it.
Even Elon Musk talked about it. He's like, that chick's crazy.
We only make national news for shit.
Well, she said I try and stay quiet because I don't want to turn into that, like, crazy person on social media going on about stuff. But that one made me so scared because, like, again, like I said, you got to think deeper. Like, the second that, unfortunately, you give the government a little bit of control, they're not going to give it back. That's just historically how it's went. Like, you know, you had the Patriot Act kind of credited for all sort of the cyber, privacy issues that we're having now.
That's why we have the NSA.
Exactly. And, like, that's one of the things that frustrates me the most is, like, again, you're trying to disarm, the people who are actually doing it within the law. You're not going after the people who are going outside of the law. Maybe if we actually spent some time in keeping repeat gun violence offenders locked up or doing some sort of reform in that way, that might be a change. But she's just overall, she's not a great person. I've had a personal encounter with her, and she's not a nice person. And she, you got to kind of ask yourself, how is she a multimillionaire on the New Mexico governor's salary? You can go and Google it, and you're like, where did all that money come from? But she's into some interesting things.
Well, I was talking with some people, and I think because I think the big reason why it happened is, and obviously she overplayed her hand, because obviously the gun control thing is an easy thing for the Democrats to go after. Yeah. It's an easy thing to support, right? Mass shootings happen, gun control needs to happen. It's an easy thing to, like, on the surface level, very easy to support that, right? I think she obviously overplayed her hand a bit, but you're going to see a lot of this throughout the country where you're going to have these governors who want a seat in the White House.
Yeah, exactly.
Provided the Democrats win back the office, which it looks like they're going to. You're going to see a lot of grandstanding, a lot of virtue signaling from these governors, because she was supposed to be the, like, Department of Education head or like the Department of Health or something like that in Biden's cabinet. She was supposed to get that, but it didn't work out. So I'd imagine that she is going to she's going to do something like this again, or something a little bit of a lower scale, but you're going to see other governors who think they're going to have a seat at the table. Yeah. And they're going to do these crazy things.
Yeah, take a stab at it.
Just to get headlines.
Yeah. And, like, that's one of, again, like, what I hate feeling hopeless. And I, like you said, a lot of people spoke up and didn't like the things that she was trying to enforce, which is good. But with the educational system, my dad's a basketball coach, and he was talking, he said, if there was he said, he was reading a statistic, and it said, what if there was an after-school program that could boost graduation rates, could completely cut out out-of-school violence, could boost GPA, could boost mental and physical health, all of this wide array, everything is boosted. We would be funding that like crazy, but we already have that. It's sports. If a kid at any age is in some sort of sports program, whether that's, football, lacrosse, soccer, any sort of after school sporting club or team, their chance for success is super, super high. It like goes up like 80%. And you see New Mexico sports, and a couple of years back, we tried to completely get rid of middle school sports altogether. And they're saying that they were going to cut all middle school sports, which we barely have any now. It's like basketball, and that's kind of it. And then, like, there was outrage. And then, like, 2 weeks later, they came out and they're like, oh, we actually found that some guy was corrupt and was taking all the money for the sports, so we actually still can have them. And so it's like, oh my gosh, there's all levels of just corruption and people just trying to fill their pockets, and who's paying for it? Kids. And the other thing with the gun issues is like school shootings. Nothing terrifies me more. Like my dad being out of school, I've still got a sister in high school. Like, that stuff terrifies me.
How many siblings do you have?
Two.
Two?
Yeah, I'm younger brother and younger sister. My brother's in college and my sister's in high school. She's a junior. And the thing is, when COVID happened, everybody started getting those checks. So there's obviously money we can whip out of nowhere. Why don't we
I would
put
just say
money?
Also, look at all the money we're sending Ukraine right now.
Oh, yeah. And what's TSA? Like when 9/11 happened, we were able to whip up this monstrous agency to run security on every flight. So like something of that scale is very doable. Why aren't we doing that for schools? If we wanted to actually protect the kids, why aren't we doing anything like that? And that's the thing, is I don't think they really care. See all these crazy policies, and we need to talk about gun control and all this. Cool, you can talk about that. Why don't we protect the kids? Yeah. And there's none of that. There's none of those conversations going on.
No, I agree completely. And what comes to mind with like after school stuff, the first thing that comes to mind, especially with how popular it's gotten, is martial arts. I don't understand how there hasn't been, even in a state like, well, really any of the southern states, but like even Florida or Texas, I'm shocked there hasn't been a huge, like a state that put a sweeping program in. It was like, okay, all public schools now have a state-funded martial arts program.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand how that's not a thing.
Yeah. We have wrestling.
Yeah.
And so why not make MMA?
Right, exactly. Yeah, most high schools have wrestling, but like, why is there not boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, like shit like that?
And talking about like young men,
You're telling me every young boy, teenager between the age of any teenager doesn't want to feel like they're Conor McGregor?
Yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Exactly. I did MMA for about 2 years, and it was mainly because I was a shithead like 19, 20-year-old dude. And luckily I kind of realized that. And I kind of wanted to prove how tough I was to everybody. And so
You got humbled quick.
yeah, so I went into an MMA gym and I walked in being all big, bad, and tough. And I'm like, holy crap, these people could literally eat me if they wanted to. It humbles you so quickly. No matter how like tough you think you are, like the sweetest like Brazilian dude wrap you up in a pretzel and you're like, oh God.
Yeah. Yeah, getting punched in the face or getting choked out on a regular basis is going to teach you a couple life lessons.
Yeah. I don't know if you know, there's a UFC fighter. His name is Tim Means.
I think I've heard the name.
I went to Jackson's for like about a year, and it was very wrestling heavy. And I'm pretty tall and lanky now, but I was even skinnier then, and I was just like easy meat for takedowns. So I was like, I don't know if I love all this wrestling stuff. And they had told me about a gym called Fit NHB. That was like more of a striking gym, and they had a lot of boxing and stuff like that. So I was like, okay,
I went down there for a few boxing classes. I couldn't afford to go there for a long time, but that's such a badass place.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I went to their. I went a couple of times with a buddy of mine to their older location before they moved to like I think on the east side now.
Oh, okay.
But that bigger gym they had off of like Central. Lomas. Yeah, Lomas.
Yeah.
Lomas and Broadway.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I went there, and again, I guess I hadn't gotten all of it out of my system, but I was like, I'm switching gyms, like, feeling tough. I'm like, I know what I'm doing. And it's a small gym, so you'll have UFC fighters sparring with brand new people. And the last thing you want to do is go and piss off any sort of professional fighter. Because I went in and I was like kind of thinking, I'm like, I got to show them that I know what I'm about. And so sparring days were Thursdays, and I go in and I'm like, sparring with a couple people. There's I forget what his name was, but he was in one of the smaller promotions, but he's like a professional fighter. And so we're like throwing some jabs and stuff. And I was like, I'm going to set him up and like really catch him. And so I throw a jab and then try and throw a hook. And then he easily sees it, steps out of the way. And then he's like, all right, my turn. and then just catches me with the craziest uppercut I've ever experienced in all of my training. Cause it was like that respecting, like, you're not going to haul off and hit me, or I'm going to haul off and hit you, and you're not going to like it.
Yeah, he's going to match your energy.
Yeah. And my nose he hits me and my nose is bleeding like all over the mat. And so they got to stop because you got to clean it up and you got to disinfect it. And so he catches me, I'm like bleeding on the mat. And then he like goes over and grabs like the bucket with all the cleaning stuff. And he's like, clean it up and remember that we're all teammates here. And I was like,
good shit.
Damn. And so,
that's
so
beautiful.
humbling.
That is fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
I was in boxing for like 2 years, did like using some change when I was in high school and college down in Roswell. And I remember I was sparring this guy who's way more talented than I was. Kind of same situation. I thought I could get him, and he hit me with this hook across the left side of my face. It was like a Looney Tunes where Daffy Duck gets blown up into the bills in the back of his head.
Yeah.
He punched me so hard that, first of all, I saw stars for a couple seconds, but the headgear, and it was fastened properly. Like the coach made sure it was on right. He's like my fourth time sparring. He catches me, and the fucking headgear moves. and I thought I was
You're
knocked
looking
out.
through the ear hole.
No, yeah, well, it was completely fucking black, and I was like, I thought I got knocked out standing up, and I was like, am I dead? And the guy, he just comes over and with his fucking boxing gloves, grabs the thing and changes it. I'm like, oh, thank God, I'm alive.
Oh man.
Yeah, but I think stuff like that, like having that available to young men and young women, obviously, that only is a net positive for that person, that group of kids. And then you, in theory, right? In theory, you have them grow up to be better citizens. That's at the end of the day, that's what you want, right? You want a society with less losers. Like that is how you make a better society at the most basic and the most base, like, foundation, right? You want a better society, you have less losers. Yeah. You have that type of shit. And and again, I think a lot of it is because the government at large does not care. Yeah. And I think when people ask, like, how could a government be so corrupt, or how's, like, and I think it really goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier. You have your morals and you have your virtues when you start out doing something, but for the average person, they've never seen $100,000 in one place. You've never seen $100,000, $500,000, $1.5 million, $10 million, just to vote a certain way. Yeah, just to get rid of a program. Yeah, give my buddy a job, right? You don't know that type of money until it's because there's. I think everyone has a different price, but everyone has an idea of life-changing money. And even if you don't get that up front, if you start getting a little inkling of it, a little taste of what that looks like, it's like, oh, yeah, I had all this debt. I was about to lose my house, or my wife needed this surgery, my kids needed this thing, but then I voted a certain way, and $20,000 just magically found its way into my fucking bank account. Yeah. I think I could keep doing this. Yeah. And make it, because at the end of the day, no matter how good people think they are, at the end of the day, to varying degrees, humans are selfish creatures. Yeah. And you want to take care of yourself. And that's a good thing until you start fucking over people in mass. It's like, yeah, you just got $20,000, but then this community of people doesn't have this resource, or this doesn't happen and shit like that. Yeah. There was,
like, I'm very critical of the government, and I like one of my favorite, probably my favorite band of all time is Pink Floyd, and their music's very critical of, I mean, Welcome to the Machine is one of the greatest slogans ever. But there's a country singer, his name's Oliver Anthony. He blew up.
I was literally about to say, I'm sure you fucking creamed your shorts when fucking Oliver Anthony got off.
I think my mom still probably has it on repeat. That song is great. And
that's how famous artist. He is. You don't have to say the name of the song. Yeah. You say, yeah, that song was good.
It was amazing. And it's one of those things where I've been working on this album for months, and I probably had like 4 or 5 songs written, like kind of like in that tone. And then he comes out with it, and then it like blows up, and I'm like, damn, well, I can't release those songs anymore. People are going to think I'm trying to he's trying to be like Oliver Anthony. I'm like, So I might include, like, I think I've got 2 that I like, which, I mean, they're way different. But I think, why I like country. It's such a free landscape of talking about anything and talking about the things you actually see around you. And I think he worded it very good. You know, I think a lot of people kind of, they got mad at him for the fudge rounds part,
which is so silly.
Yeah. But he, again, even if you disagree with it, it's a free landscape to say what's on your mind.
Well, not only that, but what you just said, the perfect example of why that song resonated so well. You're someone that, you know, before he blew up, you're probably in the same living situation. You have the same viewpoints on the way this country's going. You have your more or less, plus or minus probably 15, 20 degrees. You have the same moral and ethical, like, point of view. And so when a song like that comes out, not only did it strike a chord with you, you had pretty much the same, your own flavor and your own point of view, but on the same issues in songs you're writing. Yeah. That's why it hits so well, is because everyone's like, yeah,
finally.
He's right. Like, we're finally uplifting the right person.
Yeah.
Like,
something real.
Yeah. Like, he's telling the fucking truth. Like, I'm getting, like you said in one of your songs, like, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but you get taxed for all this shit, but where is it going?
Yeah.
Like, I think about that all the time. Where I'm like, yeah, I get my paycheck gouged,
Yeah.
and the ride home feels like the fucking Indiana Jones ride.
Yeah.
Because how fucked up how fucked up our roads are. And then it's like you travel outside of New Mexico, you go to Colorado has brick roads that are smoother than New Mexico paved roads.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck are we talking about here?
And like with the Texas, they don't have the income tax. But they have, and everybody, well, they've got crazy property taxes. I'm like, yeah, but look at their schools. You go to like a 2A school that has like 200 kids in it. It looks like a college. And so it's like that you can at least see where money's going.
Their infrastructure.
Yeah. And here it's like, I don't really know where all this money's going. And we are a small state. We've got population of like 2-3 million in the whole state of New Mexico.
No, it's more than that.
Is it?
No, it's because I think even Albuquerque, I'm going to look it up real quick. I never pull out my phone during a pod, but what's it called? So ABQ population 2023. So, maybe you are right because Albuquerque jumped up a bit to a little over 500,000. So let's just say New Mexico population. No, you're dead right. Yeah, I'm completely wrong. You're dead right. We have 2.1 million people. Yeah.
Dang. Yes, it's like shockingly tiny, and New Mexico is a massive state. I think it's like one of the most rural states as far as like per capita. So I think when you have, there's like only like one person per every however many miles, and I think when you have that, like in Albuquerque, that's just like we're experiencing such a small sliver of how bad things are. Like in my times working out on reservations, it's sad, like seeing the stuff that they're living in, and the Mescalero, or Into the Mountain Gods in Ruidoso. I think it's the Mescalero reservation. It's like third world, and a lot of places in New Mexico are like that when you get outside of the cities. And so like I don't understand like how we're not like, where's all of this money going? Like if we're not seeing it and they're not seeing it, where is it going? And I think that's the thing that most people are like, we just want something, like just try and help some way.
So I say quality of life. Yeah. The quality of life on the reservations, it's talked about. People have a basic understanding. Like, it's shitty, but people don't know to the degree of how bad it is. Why do you think that's not propagated enough in like local news, I guess?
So when it comes to reservations, it's a really interesting subject because, well, I've never lived on a reservation, so I hope I'm not butchering this, but from friends and people that I had talked with, there's this weird limbo, which one, they're technically a sovereign nation. So they're not gonna get the benefits. They're not part of.
Keep going. I'm just gonna take my hoodie off. I'm getting a little hot.
They're not part of like the public school systems. They're separate in those divisions. But a big problem that they fall into is if you are living on the reservation, you're getting a certain amount of funding, just to be a part of that reservation, and different ones are more generous. Different ones are not. So you fall into this weird limbo where, do I leave and try and go and risk it in a big city, or try and go and risk it somewhere else and throw away my entire life here? Or do I just keep living in this horrible system that has been set up? And it's bad. There was this one time I was giving out cigarettes. I would do cigarette promotions, and people would come up and I'd give them a free cigarette. And I'd lie and they'd be like, which one's your favorite? I'm like, this one. And they're like, oh, cool. And this one dude comes up to me and he doesn't have an eyeball, like no glass or anything. I'm just looking straight into his skull. And I'm like trying not to act surprised because I don't want to be mean, but I'm like, holy shit, like what happened to your eye, dude? And I can only imagine what healthcare is like out there. But it's such a big problem that never gets talked about. I don't think it's very glamorous.
Why do you think that is?
I think that there's a lot of weird resentment. I think that I'm big into cultures. Me and my wife just went to Europe this year which was amazing. And the main reason that I wanted to do that is to see different cultures. And like, I love learning about people. That's my favorite thing, all types of people. And working with a lot of Native American people, I think their culture is misunderstood. I think it's a lot like Hispanic culture. Hispanics are tough, but we're really loyal. When you go to a Hispanic barbecue, there's a lot of poking fun at each other. There's a lot of, what people would say is putting down, but really that's just, you're close with that person.
Shit.
Yeah. And that's just part of the culture. You go and that's how you greet each other. And so one thing that I noticed with when dealing or when being on the reservations and trying to almost be like a salesperson out there is they don't want you to be a salesperson. They don't want you to come out and pity them. They don't want you to come out and be rude. That's the worst thing you could do. But they're going to check you out first. When you go out there, they're not going to be overly, hi, how are you? No, they're going to check you out. But if you keep showing up and you keep showing that you're just a good person in general, they'll slowly start letting you in. And once you do that, again, you experience that loyalty. And so I don't think when it comes to providing help, we're really into quick fixes, throwing money at something or throwing anything at something, being like, we did it. That's not going to fix anything. You've got to actually keep showing up. And I think that'd be the way to actually fix things.
Yeah, and I'm hearing amazing reviews about it. I really want to go watch Killers of the Flower Moon.
Ooh.
The new Scorsese movie about.
Yeah.
I kind of know what it's about. It's about these, I think I know they're big oil guys. I think they come in as like the 1920s, I think, 1910s, 1920s, around there. And they basically come in and slaughter this fucking reservation of people and just to get the oil and shit like that. And I just heard amazing things about it. And it's just, because obviously the Native American people don't have the greatest fucking history with the American government.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know, man. It's sad when stuff like that's not talked about enough and it's not like propagated enough.
Yeah.
Personally, dude, outside of like going to a fucking casino, I've never been to a reservation.
Yeah.
I just never had the reason to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So as an outside person looking in, it's like I don't even know to the extent. Like obviously, like I hear there's like one guy who's a fucking hilarious comic here in town. His name's Josh Fournier.
Okay.
If you and the wife want to go see stand up and he's doing it, he's a monster, dude. I just saw him last Saturday at Dry Heat.
Okay.
He's a fucking monster. Anyway, he'll make jokes about like the water, like the running water situation, or just like healthcare situations out there and shit like that. And it's like, okay, obviously you're making light of it, you're making fun of your own situations, your own experiences, but it's like, how bad does it really go?
Oh yeah.
The lack of a better term to put it, the lack of give a fuck of the American government to take care of its people is fucking insane. How much do you let your personal views of the government influence your songwriting?
I try. Well, so when I was writing songs for my new album, I had a really bad period where I was probably up, like I'd sleep maybe like once or twice a week, and I'd sneak out to my truck again because my wife would be sleeping, and she's a nurse. I'm not gonna wake her up, and so I'd sneak out to my truck, play songs, write stuff like that. And
hey, one day when your shit pops off, you're gonna have a real man cave to go to.
I want if I could manifest something. If I ever blow up, I'm keeping that truck, even if it doesn't run. I'm going to put it outside whatever house I'm in, and I'm always going to write music in there. That'll be the first, like, taste test of my music. I think that'd be so cool. But, yeah, I was... the Oliver Anthony stuff happened where I'm like, I don't want to seem like I'm trying to be somebody I'm not, and which is a horrible frame of mind to be in. You should never, I don't think, ever try and compare yourself or even worry about what other people are doing. But I fell into this horrible cycle of like worrying about, am I sounding like him? Am I sounding like, what is my sound? And I wrote this song, which the lyrics are beautiful. It's probably, I think, the best written song that I've ever made. And it's about me and my wife. And I write the song, put a guitar behind it, finally find the melody that I like, and I record it, mix and master it, all all in one night. And I go and show my wife it, and she starts listening, and she's like, "This sounds like a Jason Mraz song." And I was like, "What? A Jason Mraz?" I'm like, "What the hell?" And so she plays it for me. I had never heard the song before, but I was like, "Son of a bitch." I'm like, "It does sound like that song." So I like broke down, and I was like, "What am I doing?" And so after that, I like was like, "Okay, I need to cut all the bullshit out, and I just need to get really specific, and I need to just write songs that are specific to me. That way I don't worry about sounding like anybody. I don't worry about stepping on toes. And just this album is very specific life events that have happened to me. And so as far as, talking about that kind of stuff in my music, I think I have 2 songs. One of them's kind of a metaphor. So it's very, which that I don't know a better way to say that. It doesn't sound douchey, but it's like you got to kind of think a little bit, which I think is good. I think those songs are always a little more replayable and digestible when you're not just screaming, "I hate the government." And then another one's just kind of talking about our court system. So I try not to let it affect me, because I don't want people to think that I'm like an angry person. I'm not an angry person at all. I'm Christian, and the one reoccurring thing that the Bible says is to love. That's our one job to do. And so I'm a very loving person. I am very happy, love sports, love being around my family. So I mainly try and capture that in my songs.
Well, it sounds like I don't get it's just either like talking to you now or listening to your music. I don't get the impression of anger. I get the impression of extreme concern, which is a very different thing. You can be angry, and anger really, like, not that it doesn't have a place, but 9 times out of 10, it's quite useless.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's pretty useless a lot of the time, especially when anger turns into hate. There's a lot of uselessness to be had there, but there's a lot of utility in being concerned.
Yeah.
Because if you're concerned about something, you typically can find a solution. You have options to fix your concern, right? Obviously, if it extrapolates out, and his concerns towards the government, it's like, yeah, you can't fix that, but you can fix how you digest it.
Yeah.
You can fix how you let it affect your life. And when you do it and you channel it in a positive way, like through music, you obviously get the better outcome.
Yeah.
I had a train of thought, and I think I just lost it. Fuck. I hate when that happens.
Do you go to casinos a lot? You said you'd spend some time in casinos.
No, I fucking avoid casinos with a passion, dude. Like, I don't know, because I can count on my hand how many times I've been to a casino, honestly. And like, because I remember I went to Vegas. This was 2 summers ago. I went to Vegas with a bunch of my buddies, because we have one of our like mutual close friends. He used to live here, but he moved back with his family to Nevada, and we went out there. And I remember I had never been. This is my second time in Vegas, but I'd never been to a casino. And I remember walking through a casino for the first time, and I felt like I was in a brightly lit casket. Dude.
They're tough to get out of, too. They hide the exits.
There are no clocks on the walls. Yeah. There are no windows. And the doors are heavy as shit, so when they close, they fucking block out all the light.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking around specifically at, like, you can tell if there's like the younger people, they're like the 20s and their 30s, and they're kind of just hanging out, doing whatever.
Yeah.
But then you see the people, and they're like,
with the problems,
late 50s, 60s, 70s, playing with the one-armed bandit. And it's like, fuck, like, you're retired, or regardless of how much money they may or may not have, it's like, okay, you're retired, and you can tell the junkies at the slot machines.
That look in their eye.
Yeah.
They get
They're zoned in. It was like the slot machines, or at the roulette table, or they're playing cards, and it's like, oh, like, this is your thing.
Yeah.
Like, this is like what you do with your life on a hyper regular basis. And I don't mean to pass judgment, but it's like, how much money is going into this, and what are you getting out of it? Like, it's one thing if you're a fucking pro gambler, or like you're a fucking amazing card player, and you're able to alter luck in that way, and you're able to counting cards is illegal, but you kind of have to do a little something. You got to sprinkle some fucking gypsy magic in there to fucking figure out how to play cards properly. But, you look around, and you're like, these people are literally, pulling the lever into their
Yeah.
grave.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, fuck, that's
Dude,
so scary.
I went to Vegas right after my 21st birthday, and I was same thing. I'd never like really even been in a casino. I'd been in casinos because they always have smoke shops,
Yeah.
but I'd never like been in one. And we go to Vegas, and I didn't know anything about gambling. And we had done a little bit of drinking, and some of the group was like, "All right, it's late. Like we're going to bed." And then me and the other people who had been drinking as well were like, we're going to stay up. And we decided to go to the casino. And I didn't have a clue about roulette or anything, but I was like, I want to go play roulette because it's nice and flashy. The ball's spinning around. I felt like a monkey. I'm like, that one looks fun.
And that's how they fucking
Yeah.
get you.
I'm like, that looks awesome. And I was like, take my money. But I start playing, and I like, at that time, Vegas is freaking expensive now. I don't think you can play on a table for less than like $25. But at that time, you could play for like $5-10. So they give you your chips, and I'm like putting them. They're like yelling at me, "You can't do that." And I'm like, "Okay." And so I like lose a couple rounds, and then there's this Asian lady, and she's like, "Don't do that." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "Don't do that." And she's like starts yelling at me, and I'm like, "Okay." And I was like, and I go and put a chip on like the 0. And then she's yelling at me, "No, take it off, take it off." And I'm like, "No, I want to." And it hits. And I made like a couple $100 off of that. So they give me like all the chips that I won. And I was like, "All right, show me how to do this right." And so she sat there with me and showed me she does roulette. And I made probably like a good like $400 or $500 that night. And I was like, sweet. And so I got the bug. After that, I was like, okay, I'm in. And then my friend told me, he's like, come and play blackjack with me. And went and played blackjack, and beginner's luck, won a couple $100 there too. So I'm like, gambling's freaking easy. And I'm like,
What do you mean addiction? What do you mean foreclosing on a home? Like the fuck?
Yeah, I'm like, why doesn't everybody try and win? So which is the worst thing that could happen to a 21-year-old man. And we get back home, and I'm like, well, Sandia has a casino, and it's like a 10-minute drive. So me and my friends, we started going to the casino like 3 or 4 times a week. And I got into trying to learn how to count cards. I'm not nearly smart enough to count cards well.
You watched 21 a couple of times. You're like, wait a minute. That makes sense.
That scared me. I had seen this video on like counting cards and stuff, and we would go and, like there's a couple different ways to count cards, but I was just doing like the point system where it's like, high suits, you're up 1, down 1 with the low suits, and, a deck's either hot or cold. And I made some pretty good money throughout the year, but then seeing that movie, I was like, holy crap.
There's consequences.
Yeah, I'm like, what if they beat us up in the parking lot? And then my friend grabbed me, and he's like, dude, those guys were betting like $1,000 hands. He's like, not $20 hands. And I was like, okay, cool. But after, being in a casino like 3 or 4 times a week, you see the other, I would look at them and like, man, they've been here every day of the week. And then my friend would be like, we've been here every day of the week. And I'm like, oh, damn. And so those like trends started to scare me. But you would hear some like scary stories.
Yeah.
Because people will go and they'll take loans out on their cars. They'll take loans out against their homes just for extra money to go and gamble. But yeah, it was fun while it lasted, but I was smart enough to cut it off while I was up.
Yeah, get out while you're still healthy.
Yeah.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, I do want to touch a little bit more on your new album. Do you have a release date for it?
I'm trying to hit November 24th.
Nice.
I'm still wrapping up. I finished all the recording, but I'm still mixing and mastering. So November 24th is the release date as of now.
What was the most challenging part of the process for you?
It's been a really tough album. I was recording it on my own, and I didn't like the way it was sounding because, like I said, I wanted this one to be really good. And I had reached out to try and go to a studio to try and get a better sound, and ended up not liking what I got back from it. And so kind of had to go back to square one and record again from the ground up. I got, a lot more time learning about how to treat my voice because I'm a loud singer, which that's pretty tough to make soft and enjoyable on the ears. So definitely the recording process was a beast, and the mixing and mastering of all of it was tough. But I feel like it's a good problem to have, because at least I'm not worried about the songs that I'm not worried about if people like them. People might like them, people might hate them, but I like them, and that's the most important part. It's just getting them to people that's been the toughest part of the journey, but we're almost there.
And you talked a little bit earlier about you had what you had written or what you had recorded, and you're starting to really whittle a lot of it down, cut a lot of it out, and really like shape and form into what you wanted it to be, and also what your style is, and I guess the end vision you were going for. As you're cutting things down, and you're like cutting the fat pretty much, and you're cutting off like what you don't feel aligns with who you are. Did you find any like patterns in that? Like, hey, I'm making this writing habit where it's like I'm setting my songs up like, all right, I'm setting the structure of the song up like this, and like this part really isn't that necessary, but I need to highlight this. Like, is there any common denominators you're finding like that?
The biggest thing that I learned is to get rid of my what ifs, because I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan. I'm a huge Led Zeppelin fan. But I also have to kind of be content into the equipment and everything that I have access to. So usually I'll have a song, and the song will be good, like bare bones. Like, I think there's a lot of space for just a singer and his guitar in today's music. The simplicity of it is nice, but I would find those moments where I'm like, what if I did like a raging guitar solo right here? And then I would do it, and then I'd like it, and my wife would be like, that was too crazy. Like, that was like it didn't match. And so learning to like get rid of the what ifs, and if it wasn't part of me making the song, it doesn't need to be there. And so I've got some electric guitar on a couple of songs. I've got a little bit of percussion and stuff, but I had originally planned for those to be there. So getting rid of the, what if I did this, like crazy synthesizer or something, getting rid of all of that and just keeping it bare.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, like I said in the beginning, I love your sound. I'm very excited to see what you do with your album when it comes out next month, because you got something, dude.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you've got something going, so keep it up.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, too.
Dude, this has been awesome.
I'm a huge fan, and I was like, I wonder if he'll have me on. So this is a dream come true. This is like the Albuquerque Joe Rogan.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I do. Before we get out of here, where can people find like all your social media, where can they find your music, all that kind of stuff?
So great for marketing. I'm the only Dustin Woody that I've found on Apple Music, Spotify, all of the music streaming platforms. So I'm up on all of them. My name's Dustin Woody. My Instagram's Woodman Jr. And then my Facebook is Dustin Woody, and my YouTube's been rough, but I'm going to be getting new content up, videos behind the songs when they release in November. So my YouTube's also Dustin Woody.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, buddy. Well,
thank you.
No, dude, thank you for coming down and doing this. This has been a shit ton of fun. Like I said, I'm very excited to see what you put out.
Well, thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.